I have been deliberately staying away from the fandom menace and their content, but I kinda want to pierce the veil and see them mauled over Star Wars explicitly comparing Palpatine to Trump. And before you ask, no, of course I haven't watched Tales of the Jedi yet. It's a feature-length drop, and I already had to take a nap before making this video. So, let's get to it. I'm Gayfesh, and today we'll be talking Star Wars Andor, Season 1, Episode 8, Narkina 5. But before we get started, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Spoilers ahead. Well, Andor ain't getting sprung anytime soon. It's funny because he's now explicitly on Deidre's radar. So much so that she's running an entire task force on Ferrix to sniff him out, but he's already in Imperial custody. They just have no idea who they have. Deidre also brings Cyril in for questioning because he keeps submitting false reports about Cassian Andor in his job, and he explains his side of the story and how he is using any power he still has to try and bring Cassian to justice. He makes a pretty impassioned plea, turning the interrogation into a job interview, and while Deidre keeps things close to her chest, I think she's gonna hire him. I'm actually glad from a story perspective that the Empire is putting the pressure on Ferrix because it means characters like Bix and Marva are still around. Marva has been running herself ill looking for secret tunnels the rebels could use against the Empire, and Bix gets rounded up for interrogation by Deidre as a known associate of Cassian's. Vel and Cinta are also on Ferrix, doing the same thing the Empire is doing, looking for Cassian. I take back my criticism from episode 6, it's clear that we are getting an actual story with our lesbian couple. It's a bit of a spat though. Cinta decides to rent a room but says that only one of them should stay here, and Vel doesn't like the idea of them being separated again, even though Cinta told her from the start that her first priority is the rebellion and the relationship comes second. And then Cinta calls her out for being a rich girl who ran away from home to call into question Vel's dedication to the cause. Over on Coruscant, I'm getting a little tired of how every Mon Mothma scene plays out the same way. She's always hosting a party, whining and dining political allies while her husband is patronizing and her daughter hates her. Though I think with her approaching the banker dude to move money secretly, her family is suspecting she's having an affair. That being said, there was a great scene where she's having a conversation with several other senators and it literally just sounds like they're discussing Trump. Yeah, sure he's brash, but I like that he says what he means. Clea convinces Luthen to sever contact with Ferrix after Bix has sent them a message asking about Cassian. Luthen seems conflicted about it, even though he knows that Cassian still being out there unaccounted for is a major liability to his security. He is right to be concerned, of course, because Deidre already has a codename for him, Axis. Luthen heads out to meet up with Saw Gerrera to try and recruit him to help build the Rebel Alliance, and as a leftist, I have heard the argument they have about solidarity versus ideological purity so many times. Saw rebuffs Luthen's offer, which is to be expected because he's still off on his lonesome in Rogue One, so there's no reason for him to have a change of heart now. With all the side stories out of the way, the meat of the episode is Andor in prison. He barely says more than a few words the entire episode as he just goes through everything in shock and disbelief, but the prison is set up with an electrified floor. The guards have insulated boots, but all the prisoners are barefoot, so disobedience is met with turning the floor on. Prisoners work in 12-hour shifts, building machinery for the Empire, and each table is pitted against the other for productivity. The winning table each shift gets flavor added to their nutrient paste, the losing table gets zapped by the floor. Oh yeah, and the foreman on the floor that Cassian works is Andy Serkis! I love seeing Andy get more live-action work. He pioneered the art of mocap performances, but movies like Black Panther have shown we've been missing out on his live-action chops. But we aren't just introduced to Andy Serkis, we get names for basically every member of Cassian's table. And it felt like an encapsulation of the problem the show has. Every episode we get introduced to a new cast of characters, and it's hard to tell who we're never going to see again and who is going to be an important character later on. I don't even think I mentioned Cinta once until my episode 6 review because she literally did nothing to stand out as a character until then. Hell, a lot of these characters I have trouble remembering what they're even called. I am constantly having to think of the TV show Archer in order to recall Cyril's name. Since Cassian is the first new inmate on his floor after the Empire changed sentencing guidelines retroactively, causing a bunch of the inmates to have their sentencing increased, they all ask him about news from the outside about the resentencing and the rebel attack that instigated it. Of course, he's not about to tell them all that he did the job that got them longer sentences, but he's also been keeping his head down since the job and just literally didn't know about the increased sentencing until he was slapped with it. The episode takes place over the span of a month and shows Cassian going from being in shock and dumbstruck over a situation to getting into the groove of things. until another inmate commits suicide by walking onto the floor during nighttime. I genuinely have no idea how he's getting out of here. If I had to hazard a guess, it would probably be Cyril who finds out. He's got the old photo of Cassian, and Cassian's face should be back in the system under his assumed name. All Cyril has to do is match them up. Once that happens, it'll be a race to see who gets to him first, the Rebels or the ISB. So that's it for this week. Let me know your thoughts down below.
Andy Serkis showing up to play a random prisoner is like if James Earl Jones was sitting at the bar in episode 2.
Be sure to like, subscribe, ring the bell, and share the video with your friends. Subscribe to my Patreon to get shouted out in future videos. Check out my Bandcamp for banging tunes, including all the tracks you heard in this video. Follow me on Twitter at GayestFesh, and don't forget to check out my podcast, The Rest of Both Worlds, where I go through Star Trek The Next Generation with a friend who's never seen it. Thank you to all my patrons, with a special shout out to Piftle Cakes and Renee Vorbeck. Your support is greatly appreciated. See you all in the next video.